Hi everybody. Have you ever imagined that someday you can speak English freely as if it were your mother tongue? You can confidently join and pass any English interview, become a member of any multinational corporation you want, or work as a global businessman, negotiating deals with partners coming from all over the world. If those are what you've ever dreamed of, and if you're still struggling with your English, let me help you. My name's Hưng, author of the 5 Steps to Speak a New Language and Chief Representative of German Rose Training and Consulting. In this video series, I'm going to share with you why you can quickly master your English skills and how you can do it right here in Vietnam. And even if you have no talent in foreign language at all. Let me ask you some questions. Have you been worrying about your English for quite long? And sometimes you look back and you found that you have been wasting too much time. Maybe you have several times determined yourself to overcome it, but it seems like you have too many things to do in life and you don't have more than 24 hours a day. And then you keep switching from class to class, searching on those online forums, trying to figure out an effective way of learning English or to look for a good teacher. Until now, you still don't know where to start. Well, you are not alone. Do you know that just a few years ago, I used to spend my whole day just to write a few lines of email in English. I still remember how my back perspired every time I faced a foreigner. Like the day Jonathan visited my office, or the moment Katie in my salsa class asked me how to make a spin. You know how that feels? I was embarrassed, and I blamed myself all the times. And things would have continued that way if there hadn't been an event that happened to me. Like any other day, I went to my office in the morning. As I stepped in, everybody turned to me and said, "Congratulations, Hưng." As I didn't realize what was going on, my boss came at me and said, "Good morning, Hưng. I have a good and a bad news for you. The good news is, Mr. Nam, our best salesperson of the year, has been awarded a sponsorship to study in US, but somehow I couldn't take it, so it now belongs to you, our second best, Mr. Hưng." You know, I was like, oh my God, it was amazing. You know, it was really amazing. And later on, I heard that Nam, my colleague, he had to get married immediately. I didn't know exactly why. Maybe, okay, you guess it. And the bad news is, my boss went on, I've just received an email from the school saying that this course is a sales and marketing course, so it's going to be about the art of communication. So even though we always welcome international students, we won't accept any student who has problems in terms of English communication. Therefore, every international student will have to pass our interview via phone. And you have 5 months from now. Can you take it, Mr. Hưng? My boss asked me. If you were me, what would you do? Would you take it? You know, at that moment, I couldn't think of anything else. I said yes immediately without thinking. And now I think that was the best decision I've ever made in my life. You know, because I decided not to quit. I went to study like crazy, you know, no friends, no phones, no televisions, no hanging out. I did anything I could do. I tried any method I could try to learn, to hear, to understand, to speak. Even in my dreams, I was muttering with myself in English. And 5 months later, I just barely passed the interview. You know, I just barely passed it. But I did it. Yeah, I did it. But until then, I still didn't understand why I could make such a big change within just a few months. And I kept trying to figure out the reasons why some people can speak 4, 5 languages, while many others struggle for years with their first foreign language. Fortunately, when I was studying in US, I had a chance to attend a course which is called Accelerated Learning Techniques. And during this program, I have found 2 important things. The first thing is that most language learners don't have a strategy. You know, when you do something without a strategy, you would easily fail at your very first attempts. Or maybe you would have to spend much more time and efforts without getting considerable result. And some people do have strategies, but somehow they just don't work. And here comes the second thing. Those strategies don't work because most people don't understand the working mechanism of human brain when it comes to learning a new language. You know, your brain is awesome, but if you don't use it properly, it's not going to work at its best. So that's why I have spent a huge amount of my time doing researches on this issue. I read tons of books. I developed and tested dozens of methods with my friends and my students. It took me more than 4 years, and finally I have cracked the secret code of learning a new language. In the next part, I'm going to share with you the secret that can help you be able to hear, understand, and speak, or even present like a professional native speaker. People will have to turn their heads around to look at you every time you pick up your phone to talk to someone in English. But before we move ahead, I think it's important to talk a little bit about the problems and the obstacles that you might be facing. I guess you could have been learning English for a while, and if I'm not wrong, you may not remember the vocabulary you have learned, no matter how hard you try to memorize them. Even if you have written down the words many times, but it's like there was a hole in your mind through which new words keep leaking out. Or maybe you don't understand what the speaker is saying in the tape, even though you have replayed the tape over and over again, until you lost your patience, and then you looked at the transcript. You surprisingly found that you have learned all those words before, but somehow you couldn't hear them. It is frustrating, isn't it? Or you think your pronunciation is not bad, but somehow your audience don't understand what you're talking about. Even worse, you forget everything you have learned when you face a foreigner. Well, it is not your fault. It's simply because you are doing it the old way without knowing that the learning sciences have now changed dramatically. You don't have to do it the hard way. The method I'm going to share with you is something different from what you normally heard, because I won't tell you to memorize words, even though I know many language teachers keep telling you to do so. But to me personally, it is quite ineffective. When I was trying to memorize words, I felt like I was chasing them. While I could keep some, I also lost some. I think language is not something we can memorize. Instead, I believe what you need to do is to build a mechanism or system so that you can acquire the vocabulary. In other words, vocabulary will come to you and then will be retained in your mind in a more natural way. I also won't tell you to replay the tape over and over again and force yourself to hear every single word. Instead, you need to build or to develop a sound map in the language processing section within your brain so that you will easily hear and understand what the native speakers say, no matter how fast they speak. I won't tell you to learn and memorize as many words as possible. I know most people recommended you to do so, but I will tell you how to learn the right words. And the last thing I'd like to mention here is that people keep relying on external factors such as native speakers or foreign language environment, hoping that these factors can help them develop their speaking skills. Unfortunately, those may be good supporting factors, but they are not the determinant. In fact, it is not someone or something that can help you be able to speak well. It is you who will help yourself be able to speak. And you can do it in a short period of time if you follow my 3-stage speaking processes. Once you have mastered your listening and speaking skill. Okay, let me repeat this. When I say master, I mean you can talk freely in English with anyone from anywhere, either by phone or face-to-face. So once you've mastered it, tons of opportunities will open in front of you. I'm mentioning this here because I think you better have a big picture about what you're going to get as a global citizen. Let me give you 4 typical cases about how you can play a much bigger game. The first one, if you're seeking for a better job, you don't have to limit your career prospect within your home country, Vietnam. Let me give you an example. This is monster.com, a job-seeking site. It is similar to vietnamworks.com, but it works globally. And there are tons of companies coming here to seek for candidates in Asia, those who will be working at the representative offices or branches. If you look at the job by location right here at the bottom of the page, you will see there are jobs available in Hong Kong, China, Singapore, Vietnam, and so on. Let's say you're interested in sales job, and let's try clicking on the sales at the jobs by functions column. See, there are quite a number of companies that are looking for candidates working for their offices or branches in Vietnam. And you can also look for jobs located in other countries like Singapore, Hong Kong, or Thailand. A few months ago, a friend of mine got a job offered by a company in 500 Fortune list, and he has flown to Singapore to work there. You can think of something similar to that. The second case, if you are a designer or a programmer or a doctor or an expert in any field, you can look for your potential clients internationally through sites like elance.com. You can talk to them and see how much more they are willing to pay you compared to your existing local customers. Do you know that Indian and Singaporean have started to earn really good money on international marketplaces like this? You don't want to be left behind. The third case is if you're running your own business. Oh, great. If you're running your own business, you'll be free to bargain with some supplier in India or negotiate with some customer in US. The business world is now flatter than ever before, and that is great for entrepreneurs like you. As you can see on international trading sites like this, entrepreneurs around the world are looking for partners in Vietnam. And there's a whole bunch of opportunities out there. The last case, and this is what I love the most, you'll have a chance to learn from the best with extremely low cost. Yes, I'm mentioning the best in its pure meaning. Let me show you an example. Let's talk about Brian Tracy, for example. Maybe you do or do not know about him yet, but people keep talking about him as a guru about leadership, management, and selling. He has written more than 40 books consulting business strategy to more than 1,000 companies, big and small. He has founded and run more than 10 enterprises himself. What do you think if you have a chance to attend his online course about business growth strategies? Is it going to be great? Do you know that if your English is good enough to hear and understand what he says, you can immediately sign up to his business growth strategies online course with just a few tens of dollars per month? Well, it is just one example. It is just one example. If you are interested in another area of expertise, you can find dozens of experts in your field out there on the internet. I just want to share with you that learning from the best is really great, and much more other interesting things. But I better stop here, otherwise I'm going to ramble a whole day. In the next video, I'm going to explain more in details about the strategy and the techniques. I'm going to explain why you can quickly master your English in a short period of time, and how you can do it right here. The 5 steps to speak a new language. First of all, thank you so much for all of your comments and your feedbacks on my last video. In that video, I have shared with you my story about how I was struggling for many years with my English and how I finally overcame it in just a few months. We have also talked about the opportunities you can get once you master your listening and your speaking skills. We talked about the working opportunities, you can absolutely apply to all those multinational corporations out there looking for candidates in Asia. We talked about the learning opportunities. You have chances to learn from the best gurus in the world. The only thing you need is that you must be able to hear and understand what they say. We talked about the business opportunities. The business world is now flat, and you are free to join the global market, to search for customers, your suppliers, your partners around the world. And today, by watching this video, you're going to understand more in details about how you can really master your English in a short period of time. Well, what do I mean by short period of time? I'm not talking about years. I'm talking about months. It might be 8 or 9 or 10 months. I can't say exactly how long, because it also depends much on you. But some of my friends and my students were able to do it in 5 or 6 months. You're going to pick up one of the most important factors that determines whether you will quickly achieve your goal or will be struggling for many years with the language you want to learn. Let me start with a question. What do you think is the most important thing when it comes to learning a new language? Let's pause for a few seconds and really think about it. What do you think? Well, there's not a single answer for this question, but when it comes to language, most people must agree with me that vocabulary is at the top of the priority list. Without vocabulary, you definitely can't hear, you can't speak. You're still able to communicate a little bit without grammar or with poor pronunciation, but you can do nothing without words. Because essentially, language is formed by words and the way they're put together logically. But have you ever asked yourself how many words you will have to learn? Or how many words are there in English? I know that most people don't make this question because people just start right away without realizing how far they have to go and how long it will take to get to the end of the road. And that is not really good when you have a long journey. You'll be more likely to reach the target if you have a map in your hand, or if you can realize how far you're going to have to go. Now let me tell you, if you take a look at a dictionary, you'll find that an average one may contain 100,000 words. A bigger one may have 200,000 or 300,000 different words. And I have another question for you. How many words you can learn and remember each day? Given the fact that you learn them and then you forget them, right? You learn and you forget. So how many words do you think you can learn and remember each day? Now let me assume that you can learn and remember 20 words per day. And this is not a bad number at all. To get 300,000 words, you're going to have to learn continuously in 15,000 days, which equals 41 years. Well, it sounds scary, doesn't it? But just calm down. Don't worry, it won't take you 40 years to learn English if you know this one principle. It is Pareto principle. Even though you could have heard about it before, but let me give you a very quick review. Things in our world are arranged by an interesting rule, which is called the 80-20 rule. This was found by an Italian economist named Vilfredo Pareto. That's why it is also called the Pareto principle. In the beginning, he observed that 80% of the lands are owned by 20% of the population. And then he found that this number is true in many other fields as well. For example, 20% of the workers may produce 80% of the result, or 20% of the customers may bring in 80% of the revenue, or 20% of the features normally cause 80% of the usage, and so on. In fact, the rate 80 per 20 is rather a symbol than an exact number. In many cases, it could be 90 per 10 or 95 per 5. The reason why this principle became famous is because thanks to it, people could decide where to put their efforts into, like their time, their money, their resources, in order to get the most results. And the great thing is that this principle also true in learning a new language. Even though the total number of different words in English may come up to more than 300,000 words, only a small portion of that number is used in daily lives. As early as the 1930s, George Zip has found what people now call Zipf's law. He researched various languages, including English, and he found that each word has a different frequency of occurrence. In English, for example, the word the tops the frequency ranking with 7.5%, the word of following with 3.5%, and so on. Amazingly, just 130 words make up 50% of occurrences. Other studies show that Americans use somewhere from 2,500 to 3,000 most common words in their daily lives. The good news is that these 3,000 common words build up more than 95% of the content in any conversation, telephone call, email, or even books and newspapers. In other words, instead of learning more than 300,000 different words, you can focus on 3,000 most common words but still understand 95% of all conversations, emails, newspapers, and books. These most common words belong to what we call the core vocabulary. Some linguists believe that the core vocabulary should contain 4,000 instead of 3,000 words. Others think it should be 2,000. But to me personally, I think the exact number is not very important, because the bottom line here is that you will be able to master your new language by focusing on this core vocabulary. When I share this finding to my friends and my students, some of them ask me, what happens if I still want to learn every word because I want to understand 100% of the content? Well, if you have the same question, let me tell you the following 3 points. Firstly, I'm not telling you to stop learning after getting those 3,000 words, because once you're mastering your core vocabulary and understanding most of the language, no one stops you from discovering further to enrich your vocabulary, right? The point here is, which side do you want to focus on first? Do you want to spend years focusing on 297,000 uncommon words to understand 5% of the language? Or do you want to spend a few months focusing on the 3,000 most common words to get 95% of the language? And secondly, another reason for you to focus on the core vocabulary is that in order to remember and be able to use a specific word, you will have to be exposed to that word at least several times. Many linguists believe that a person will need to get exposed to a certain word from 5 to 10 times to master it. And that's why it's not a good idea to spread your efforts unfocusedly. And finally, let me tell you, 95% is fine. It's fine. Think about it. Getting 95% of a content is similar to getting 19 words of every 20 words. Let me give you an illustration. If you pick up a page from a newspaper or a book written in your mother tongue, like this one. This is a page I copied from VN Express, and then I try covering one word every 20 words. Every 20 words, I covered one word. Let's try reading through it. Try it. Can you almost get the whole meaning? It is okay, right? That's why I said 95% is already fine. And if you notice, even when you're speaking in Vietnamese with someone living in another location, you may not understand everything if that person is using local glossaries. And what would you do if you don't understand one word or another? You would simply ask, what? Or what do you mean by, or things like that. It happens all the time in communication, even in your mother tongue. And in the last minute of this video, let me tell you my little secret. Actually, I don't know many words. I can't tell you exactly how many English words I know, but I'm quite sure that I don't know more than 300,000 words. But I can speak English quite freely, as you see I'm doing right now. I have no problem talking to my partners, negotiating deals over the phone or face-to-face. I have no problem reading documents, newspapers, books. I can watch movies without sticking my eyes into the subtitles. And you can do the same. Now that you've got one of the most important secrets that determines whether or not you will quickly achieve your goal in learning a new language. But we haven't talked about how you can actually get them. Which words are they? In the next video, I'm going to share with you a technique that will help you to quickly acquire all those important words. And the best thing is that you won't have to memorize them, but it will naturally go into your mind and will be retained in a long period of time. So, thank you for watching my video. If you like it, share it with your friends and your beloveds. If you're using Facebook, just simply click the like button to share it with your friends. If you have any question, or even if you don't agree with what I'm telling you so far, feel free to give me your comments and your feedbacks. I'd love to hear them. So stay tuned with your inbox. I'm going to send you the next video soon. But until then, take action. Do something. Do something right now to improve your English. Because if you want to shine tomorrow, you've got to sparkle today. I'd like to thank you so much for your comments and feedbacks on my last two videos. As you have been watching me so far, I believe that you're serious in quickly overcoming your language barrier to be able to hear, understand, and speak, or even present in English. If you're like some friends of mine, you may have your own unique talents. You may have your dreams and wishes. You may want to join the global community, to work anywhere you want, to become a businessman or businesswoman, going around the world, working with partners coming from many other countries. But you and I have the same disadvantage of living in a non-English speaking country. Some years ago, when I was struggling with my English, I used to ask myself, oh, why is it English? Why isn't it Vietnamese? I'm not sure if you ever had the same thought, but that damn language is holding you back, right? Sorry I'm using bad word here, but it is holding you back from showing your real capability to the world. Now I want to tell you that it is not very hard to learn to speak a new language if you know to do it the right way. That's why I'm here to share with you some of my best knowledge and experience. The knowledge that I usually teach in my private coaching class only. But the reason why I created this video series and share with you for free is because I don't organize such program very often, and I have to do many other consulting works. And I understand that not everybody can afford to spend more than $100 to attend my class, my 3 or 4 session program. So I created this video hoping that it will help you achieve your goal. In the last video, we have talked about the core vocabulary, and we have learned that it determines whether or not you will quickly achieve your learning target. And today, I'm going to share with you a technique that will help you quickly access to the core vocabulary. It will help you retain those words in a longer period of time, and more importantly, it will help you learn in a more comfortable way. In the first part of the video, I'm going to explain how and why you remember or forget a certain word. What is the mechanism here? And I'm going to tell you the big mistake in learning vocabulary that many language learners make. Then in the next part of the video, I'm going to share with you, I'm going to give you a step-by-step instruction for you to practice my technique. Don't worry, even though it took me almost 4 years to figure it out. But it won't take you more than 4 minutes to understand it. Once I tell you how, it's going to be super easy to follow. So are you ready? Let's start. Have you ever asked yourself why sometimes you could retain a piece of information for quite long the first time you heard or saw it? But when you learn language, when you learn English, sometimes you couldn't remember a certain word, even though it was not the first time you learned it. You know, even though it was not the first time you learned it. And the common case here could be you see some word which is familiar, but you can't remember its meaning. It happens all the time, right? You can't remember its meaning. Let me tell you why. Your brain will easily remember things that it can associate. In his book, Second Nature, Human Brain Science and Human Knowledge, the Nobel Prize-winning author Gerald Alderman reveals a lot of interesting findings about human brain. He found that our brain cells function by a mechanism that he called recognition and association. Because of association mechanism, you can easily remember a piece of information that had something to do with your existing data in your brain. In other words, the information that can relate to your experiences, your thoughts, your feelings, your desires. It will be very hard for you to remember a piece of information that has nothing to do with you. For example, if I tell you my name, you will remember it for quite long because my name relates to your desire of learning English, so that your brain can link that name to other information already exist in your mind. Like you have watching me talking in my videos, or you want to speak English fluently and maybe I can help you, and things like that. But if I tell you a name without letting you know who he or she is, you'll forget it in a few days. Secondly, you can only retain a word if you're exposed to it several times. There's a very important point here, and many people don't know it. It is you need to be exposed to that word in different contexts. It will be very difficult for you to remember a word if you learn it several times but in the same context. That's the reason why sometimes you learn a word in your class and then you wrote it down in a notebook. Then you may look at it once or twice, but you still forget it. And even worse, some people try to learn vocabulary from a list. This is a very big mistake, because I'm sure that you will never be able to retain words by memorizing from a list, no matter what kind of list it is, with or without quotes attached to it. So remember, you can retain a word much more easily if you are exposed to it several times and in different contexts. Now let's move to the next part. Let me show you my technique, the free reading technique. The reason why I call it free reading, because I want to distinguish it with the comprehension reading section that you usually find in the textbook. To give you a better view, let's take a look at this one. This is a typical comprehension reading section. I got this one from the site BBC Vietnamese. As you can see, this is a short paragraph. Sometimes it could be longer depending on the intention of the composer. There are words in bold and there are notes at the lower section to explain the meaning of those words. In many cases, there could be several questions for you to answer. If you were to study this reading section in your English class, the teacher would write these words onto the board, explain the meaning, instruct you on how to pronounce them, require you to answer some questions, and so on. This method is very common from the beginner to advanced levels. When using this approach, the teacher assumes that you already know all other words. The words in bold are focused upon because they are supposed to be more complicated and more difficult for the learners. Okay, now let me ask you a question. Are you sure that all those difficult and complicated words listed in the example are worth your time and effort? Recall what we talked about in the last video, the Pareto principle and the core vocabulary. You want to make sure that the words you spend time on should be the most common words. Coming back to the example, you can now see that the comprehension reading method tends to drive you to focus on the most difficult words. And my next question is, are the difficult words the most common one? Unfortunately, the answer is no. Most of the times, the shorter and simpler words are more common than the long and complicated ones. If you want to check how common a certain word is, you can use the website word count. Here's the web address. This is a website that provides rankings based on how common a certain word is. Even though I can't vouch for its reliability, but at least it can give us a rough idea. All you need to do is to enter the word you want to check in the Find Word box and then click the arrow button next to it. Let's give it a try with the word humanitarian from the reading section. Here we go. We got a ranking of 11,000 plus. This result shows you that the word is far less common than the 3,000 most common words. Now let's come back to the example and see how we can approach it in a more efficient way. What we're going to do is that we're going to remove all boats from the words in the passage. Because this paragraph is quite short, I need a long one to make my point clearer. So I simply did a search on Google and found this one. This is another article talking about the same story. Now what I'm going to do is I copy and paste it into the Word document. Now if you screen these two articles, you'll find some words that appear 2, 3 or even 4 times. Let me do it for you and let me highlight the words so that you can see them more easily. They are reporter, attempt, newspaper, film, access, deal, family. The phrase say on the videotape shows up twice. Again, if you want to check whether these words are really common, check it out on the site wordcount.org. Here, if you type the word attempt in the search box, you will get the frequency ranking of 882. This shows that the word attempt does belong to the group of the 3,000 most common words. The logic here is simple. The words that appear more frequently should be more common. Obviously, doing this way is really hard, and there's a much better way, the free reading technique. Here's what you're going to do. Firstly, you need to prepare some tool for you to quickly check word meaning. A favorite tool of mine is Click and See. I use it to see the meaning of a word in just one click. Or you can use any kind of dictionary software you want. But you want to make sure that you use something to check the meaning better quickly. So don't use a regular book version of a dictionary because it will slow down your reading speed. Now that you're ready, let's start to read from the beginning. Every time you face a new word or a word whose meaning you don't remember, use your dictionary software to check its meaning quickly and then continue to read. Here are the big don'ts when you're reading. Don't take note of any word, including new words, difficult words, long words, complicated words. Just don't take any note. Don't force yourself to remember any word. And finally, don't underline or bold any word. Again, don't take any note. Just read. Check the meaning of any word you want to and do nothing else. Then you want to read as fast as possible. Read as fast as possible. After reading a few sentences, maybe just 1 or 2 sentences, you might see a certain word that you have just checked the meaning of a minute before. However, you might not remember its meaning because you didn't take note. Well, no problem. Just relax. Go ahead and check its meaning again using your software. Then continue to read.
You will likely see that word again, and you may still not remember its meaning. Just use your dictionary software again and continue to read. Well, after seeing a certain word 3-4 times and checking its meaning over and over again, I'm sure you remember it the next time you see it. And then, guess what happens? You'll have learned a word from the core vocabulary. Here's the key. Those words that you have seen over and over again are the most common words. The methodology here is very simple. The most common words must show up repeatedly. After reading a long piece, you will forget many words and retain some words. Those that you forget are uncommon words. Those that you retain are common. Now, you might be wondering why such a simple technique could be so powerful. Let me explain. I call it the art of simplicity. Firstly, the free reading technique naturally drives your focus to the most common words and phrases. And at the same time, it helps you save time by not making you struggle with the uncommon ones. Secondly, following this technique, you don't need to force yourself to memorize vocabulary. You naturally retain vocabulary because you see a certain word over and over again. And more importantly, you see that word in various contexts and in different sentence structures. This helps you understand the real meaning of that word and gives you a sense of it. Sometimes you find that a certain word usually occurs prior to or after another word. This helps you remember how to use it in combination with another word. Thirdly, this technique allows you to freely choose any content you want to use as your reading materials. Remember that you retain much more easily the information that you care about, that you're interested in. Whether you are interested in science or art, entrepreneurship or stock exchange, you'll find tons of reading material on the internet. This will keep you excited every time you sit down to study. You will no longer feel tired and bored. Every time you find a phrase or structure repeated over and over again, you achieve something, and this motivates you to learn more. You don't have to force yourself to think or memorize. You just learn it in a painless way. Most of my students tell me that they could learn for hours using my technique without getting tired. This is very important for you to learn a new language quickly. And your next question might be, what type of material should I use to practice? To this question, I strongly recommend using forums. Why? Firstly, because you can easily search a forum that you are interested in. For example, if you want to open your own business, you can search forums discussing about entrepreneurs. Secondly, forum is easier for you to start comparing with newspapers or books. Thirdly, in forums, people use daily conversation style, and it is in favor of your listening and speaking skills. And the last but not least, in forums, you're free to post your comments or replies. And by doing so, you really get involved in the communication process. Now that I've shared with you the method that you can use to access to the core vocabulary, the very important factor that will help you be able to hear, understand, and speak in English. This method is simple, but it's powerful. I used it myself, and later on, my students have used it to overcome the English obstacles. Now, there are some notes for you when practicing this method. Firstly, you've got to do exactly what I've told you. Don't do it yourself. Don't do it your own way. Sometimes when you practice this method, you may not understand a certain word or sentence even after checking its meaning. It is fine. It is fine, because a dictionary can't help you understand everything. I know that in that case, what you should do is just go ahead and ignore that sentence. I know this feeling is a little bit uncomfortable because normally we will be tempted to understand the whole content, but you need to adapt to this feeling. because our purpose here is not to understand the whole content, but to collect the most common words. And thirdly, as you start reading the first page, your reading speed will be very slow, and you may have to check your dictionary too frequently. In my experience, it may take you hours to read and understand the very first lines if your vocabulary is few. And then you would feel a little bit tired and frustrated. It is okay. What you should do then is to take a break and relax before coming back. Then if you continue to read the next page, you'll find that you have to check your dictionary much less frequently. And your reading speed will increase dramatically after the very first few pages. But, you know, unfortunately, not many learners know this. Most of them quit too early without knowing that success is waiting for them right around the corner. And finally, you've learned that it took me almost 4 years to figure out this method, and it now takes you 4 minutes to get it. Now I want to give you 2 more numbers. If you spend 40 minutes every day with this method, continuously in 4 months, let me repeat, 40 minutes every day, continuously in 4 months, you will have enough words to be able to speak as I'm doing right now. I guarantee that. Okay, I hope you find it useful. Thank you so much for watching my video. I will send you another video soon. Don't forget to share this one with your friends and your beloveds. But until then, take action. Do something today to improve your English. Because if you want to shine tomorrow, you've got to sparkle today. Hi, this is Hưng coming back. I hope you enjoyed my last video and have spent a little bit of your time to try it out. Today I'm not going to tell you a technique or a tip about learning English, but I want to show you an interesting letter. What inside this letter is more important than any kind of strategy or technique. In fact, it has changed my life, and I believe it can change yours too. That's why I want to share it with you today. So let me just show it to you. Are you ready? Okay, here we go. Its title is God's Payment Terms. Well, it sounds weird, doesn't it? To whom it may concern. In response to all the disputes and concerns emerged around the distribution of success to our clients, we hereby officially clarify that we treat all of our clients with the same policies and without any bias. For those who have not received the success they want, please kindly refer back to our payment policies below. First, success is not a free gift. Depending on various sizes, you must pay its price accordingly. Second, we do not offer any kind of discount. Every client is supposed to pay full price. And third, we do not accept any kind of credit or partial payment. Every client must pay full price in advance. Success will not be delivered until your full payment is made. To your success from God's office. A small note. Clients here refers to those who are seeking for success of any kind. Well, you may believe this letter or not, but the truth is that you will achieve the success you want if you're willing to pay the price to get it. I think many people know this, but what most people don't realize is they have to pay full price before getting the success they want. If you notice, you'll see many people around you who have gone through half of the way, or sometimes they're so close to the victory, but somehow they just suddenly quit the game. It's a pity, isn't it? So for you to avoid being in those cases, I suggest you to do the following 3 steps. Step 1, determine the whole price you're going to have to pay in order to get the success you want. Write them down on a piece of paper. You know, there's a deep connection between your hand and your mind. If you don't write it down, you're not serious about it. So list out everything you can think of. Sometimes it could be things that are small and simple. For example, if you want to be successful in English, it could be something like watching your favorite movie entirely in English, or joining some kind of English club, or reducing your time playing computer game and things like that. But you've got to determine the price yourself. No one can do it for you. Step 2, determine whether you will pay it or not. I mean, you will have to make a decision. You will have to decide whether to pay the full price or not. If you don't want to pay the whole price, you better not to pay it at all, because it doesn't make sense if you pay half of the price, or 70%, or even 90% of the price. Doing so is the best way to waste your time. So you've got to decide whether to pay it or not in the very beginning. Step 3, if you decide to pay, and I hope you do, if you decide to pay, you've got to start paying it today. You know, if you don't do it today, nothing's going to happen. Today is more important than yesterday. It's more important than tomorrow. Today is the most important day. So I hope this message interests you. I have uploaded the file here as a PDF file, so you can send it to your friends to encourage them on their ways to success. Tell them that God is fair. He will deliver success to you if you pay Him the price. But remember His terms. No late payment, no discount. No late payment, no discount.
I believe you have started the new year with full of energy and with a whole bunch of new plans and ideas. In this video, I'd like to tell you 4 things that all successful language learners keep doing to achieve what they want to achieve. And at the later part of this video, I also share with you a small tip that will help you pronounce English in a better way. I'm not sure what plans and projects you have for this year, but as you're watching this video, I guess English is still a roadblock on your way to success. And if that is the case, I hope that overcoming it is one part of your plan for this year. I'm using the word overcoming because I don't like words such as enhance or improve. You may have been improving it for quite long already, haven't you? Learning English is not a long journey, and if you're tired of those improvements or enhancements or enrichment, that's a really good signal. Now I think it's time for you to make a decision which is more adventurous or audacious. A decision says you have overcome the language obstacle at a specific point of time that we can see it clearly in the near future, such as by the end of this year or in the middle of the next year, at the time you have been able to hear and speak or even present in English confidently, no matter you're in a meeting with your foreign partners or in a job interview with a multinational corporation. The only one thing which is more important than anything else is your decision. Once you have decided that language is not something that can block you on your way to success, then nothing can stop you. Nothing. For several years, I have been observing many language learners, and I kept wondering why some people can learn faster than others. And I have found that there are 4 things that all successful language learners do. If you're not doing these 4 things, you better do them right now. Number 1, set a goal. Well, it's not new, isn't it? But it's a must. If you don't have a goal, you're not serious. And you need to make sure that your goal must be specific. It must be clear, and this one is important. You must believe in that goal. A goal doesn't make sense if you don't believe in it. Number 2, slice it into small pieces. Make it easy. Make it comfortable. There's a famous question that says, how to eat an elephant? And his famous answer is, just eat it, one bite at a time. You should do the same with your goal. Slice it into smaller goals. Set a specific schedule for each one. It should be so specific that you must be very clear about what you have to do this evening in order to be closer to your goal. And number 3, be ready to face your roadblocks. No matter what kind of goal you are setting for yourself, there will always be obstacles and difficulties. If a journey is too flat, it means the goal you set is mediocre.
Big goal always comes along with big obstacles. Your job is to overcome the challenges one by one and stick with it until you achieve your goal. And finally, ask yourself this question: is what I'm doing now getting me closer to my goal? Every time you do something, ask yourself this question. That's a really powerful question.
Okay, in the next part, I'm going to show you a small tip that will help you in pronunciation. Even if you don't have the need to pronounce the same way native speakers do, I still recommend you to spend a portion of your time practicing pronunciation. Why? Because the truth is, as you have better pronunciation, you will have better listening skill. Think about it. If you could speak the same way native speakers do, would you be able to hear them when they speak? Yeah, it is, isn't it? But this is what most people do not pay attention to, because people would normally think, well, I'm not seeking for perfection, or I don't have years living in the US or UK, so it's okay for me not to pronounce well. No, it's not true. Learning pronunciation is about learning a skill. It's not about art, or it's not about talent. You know, if you practice it often enough, you'll be proficient at it. However, more often than not, when you just start out practicing pronunciation, the problem is every time you hear a native speaker produces a new word, you will probably have the feeling of being unclear about what the sound is like.
This is absolutely normal, because the first time you hear a strange sound, you'll probably experience that feeling. And consequently, you might be tempted to look at the text version of that word, hoping to get a better feeling of how it's pronounced. Even though doing that way may make you feel a bit more confident, but the fact is, looking at the text will likely drive you to pronounce the way which is not really close to the way native speakers do. In other words, the way a word is written may fool you and make you pronounce improperly. The reason is, every language has its own way of pronunciation of a certain vowel or consonant. For example, the pronunciation of the consonant G in English, like Google, is slightly different from that of the G in Vietnamese. Or the vowel N in the word man is slightly different from the vowel An in Vietnamese. Therefore, in order to pronounce the way American or English people do, you need to ignore the writing aspect of words. What you should do is to close your eyes, focus into your ears, and to recognize the sound you hear. This is a simple technique that can help you recognize the sound more easily. When you listen to a word, split your listening focus into 3 parts. The first thing to focus into is the consonant of that word. Let's say you're listening to the word change. Focus into the sound ch. You'll find that this sound is similar to the consonant of words like choose, or chat, or cheer. The second thing to focus into is the vowel of that word. With the word change, this time you try to recognize the sound A. You'll find that this vowel is similar to the vowel of words like gain, or rain, or lane. And the last thing to focus into is the ending sound of or the final sound of that word. With the word change above, this time you try to recognize the sound J. You'll find that this sound is similar to the ending sound of words like forge, or large, or badge. By doing so, you'll be able to recognize the whole word more easily. Now, don't think that this is time-consuming. The fact is that English, as well as any other language in the world, has a certain amount of vowels and consonants, and they're repeated over and over again among your vocabulary. Once you spend a certain amount of time practicing them, you will find that your pronunciation skills and listening skills as well will change dramatically. Okay, I have to go now. Thank you for watching this video. If you like it, share it with your friends. I hope to see you soon, but until then, take action. Do something to move closer to your goal, because if you want to shine tomorrow, you've got to start today.